Hello there, Otto. Great job writing these essays for your IELTS preparation. I see your test date is coming up very soon. So best of luck. Good job writing these. And let's get straight into your corrections to see what you wrote. This is a bar chart illustrating the number of annual bird flu casualties around the world in 1990-2000 achieved from the World Health Organization. Okay, a couple comments here that I want to make. Personally, I would prefer that you stuck to a more standard introduction. Instead of this as a bar chart illustrating, you could just say, this bar chart illustrates the number of annual bird flu casualties around the world. Okay? And then you can't say in 1990-2000. It has to be from 1990 to 2000 or in the period of 1990 to 2000. And the other thing that I want to say about this sentence is this is not the right word here, achieved. It should be as recorded by the World Health Organization, something along these lines, or according to the World Health Organization, but not achieved from. Okay. There was a gradual increase in the number of casualties from about 120,000 in 1990 to 175 in 1997, when it plateaued. Perhaps we should say here when they plateaued, because it's casualties and it's the number of casualties. When they plateaued, and this has a little mistake here, let's just make it for the next 4 years. And that would be absolutely fine. Okay, 1/3 excuse me, 1/3 increment in casualties was seen in the subsequent 2 years following 1991. A 1/3 increment in casualties was seen in the subsequent 2 years following 1991. Okay, a couple things here. First of all, in terms of vocabulary, this isn't really a way to express this change in the figures. And the second thing that I want to say is, judging from what I see in the bar chart, it's not really a 1/3 increase. I think it went from, I'll double check it, but I think it went from like 120 to 135. So that's really like a 10% increase. And that might be a better way to express this. Okay, so you could say something like that. A 10% increase in casualties was seen in the subsequent 2 years following 1991. And this is really nice because you've also used passive voice here, and that's a well done sentence. In 1993 to 1997, a stepwise inclination pattern of about 10,000 per year was observed. Okay, I like this part of the sentence, but again, I have a little issue with this expression here. You know, there's some standard vocabulary that we use for task 1. So you could say a steady increase, a gradual incline, I mean, there's a bunch of typical words here. So if you're not familiar with them, you can also look up some of these expressions that we use for IELTS Task 1. Okay, a roughly extra 55,000 number of casualties. You didn't even need this here. You could have just said a roughly extra 55,000 casualties was recorded when comparing the statistics of 1990 and 2000. Overall, the total number of bird flu casualties had a significant increase globally from, again, 1990 to 2000, and the figures remained static in the nearest 4 years. Okay, so Otto, I just checked, and your word count here is 121 words. That's a whole 30 words fewer than you should have written. And of course, this would affect your score. So you definitely needed to provide more detail in this bar chart, okay? Another thing that I see here is basically it's almost like you have 2 overviews. You've got one here when you talk about that general trend, and then here again you talk about the general trend. So it's kind of repetitive. On the other hand, the paragraph with the details is really kind of missing some details. So not only is the word count low, it's too low, but it also is missing some important information. Like I would have liked to have seen more information about those last 4 years. You could have mentioned that it was the highest figure on the chart, and however, the casualties stabilized or appeared to have stabilized, something. But you kind of mentioned it in passing in this sentence, but you never tell me the figures. Well, yeah, okay, 175. But it's a little short. It's a little short and needs to be kind of developed a little more, okay? But let's go on to your second task. Okay, so here it is, your task 2. Let's get straight into it. There are people suggesting that employees should work for the same job throughout their lives, while others suggest that they should change their jobs once or more. In this essay, I'm going to discuss the views on both parties and to give my opinion. All right. Okay, so a couple little things here. First of all, you work for the same employer, you work for the same company, but you work at the same job, okay? So there's a little problem here with this preposition. Then I'm going to discuss the views on both parties. I think you meant the views of both parties, because they are the views that belong to these parties. And then you didn't need the to here, because I'm going to discuss the views and give my own opinion, so this was unnecessary. Alrighty, let's move on. For the people supporting the argument that employees should stay in the same job for all of their lives, are likely those having a strong personal value on loyalty. Okay, here is where the problem starts in terms of the coherence. I think you meant something different here. I think you meant something like, for the people supporting the argument that employees should stay in the same job for all of their lives, it is likely they place a high value on loyalty. Okay, so I made some changes and then the sentence becomes much more clear. This is frequently observed in family businesses running in China. Okay, in family businesses running in China with an enmeshed family structure. Okay, employees would be regarded as maybe betrayers or maybe traitors to the family if they quit their original job to serve other companies. Moreover, they would minimize the adjustment difficulties to new environments by working for the same job. It is a well-known research finding in psychiatry that mood-related mental disorders could result from adjustment issues in vulnerable, careful with your spelling, in vulnerable people, and lead to significant emotional impairments in daily performance. Okay, okay, other than the little mistakes I made, it's quite good. Okay. On the other hand, there are people supporting the argument to change their jobs at least once in their lifetime. They believe that it is a good learning opportunity in different environments, plural, and to widen their horizons. Okay, so there's one little change that I'd like to make here. They believe that this is a good learning opportunity to be in a different learning environment, and it helps widen their horizons. I mean, there's just something wrong with the syntax here. I'd like you to improve it in order to make it more correct and more clear. For example, if you work under a supervisor with good interpersonal skills, you would develop better soft skills in handling demanding customers. Very nice vocabulary there. However, I have one concern about this example. It doesn't seem to support your argument. You're saying that switching jobs and being in different environments helps, but your example doesn't talk about switching environments. It just talks about having a good supervisor. So it doesn't really seem to fit. Okay, it's like the wrong supporting statement for this argument. However, the grammar is good, the vocabulary is very good, so nice work, but it's just in the wrong place, I think. Okay, some employees change to jobs with higher salaries and appreciation from boss to achieve a greater job satisfaction. Okay, so some employees change to job with higher salaries and greater appreciation from their boss to achieve greater job satisfaction. Okay, some little changes there really make a difference. According to some statistics from the Government Labor Department in the USA, employees have an average 10% increment in salaries. Yeah, you use this in task 1 too. I feel like it's not the correct word here. So let's stick to something like increase instead. Per job change. Okay, nice. It is important to make in living in cities which have a high living standard. I don't know what you mean here by this, in living. So I'm not really sure. It is important to make a good living. It is important to earn a good salary. I'm not entirely sure. So when you do try to correct this essay, try to find an alternate expression here to make your meaning a little more clear. Alrighty, so to conclude, I believe to switch job or not depends on personal experiences and personality. Since I am an optimistic person who likes, as here, to take adventures, to have adventures, I think, I am willing to take a challenge by changing jobs or changing to a new job. All right, so you can decide which of those two you prefer. Job satisfaction would motivate me to perform better, although there may be some obstacles in the initial phase. I wouldn't even have written this. It doesn't connect to anything, so you could just leave it out. Yeah. Okay. And the other little thing I would change here, Otto, is right here. To conclude, I believe the decision to switch job or not, or to switch jobs, plural. So reading it again, it just seems to fit better here. So you've got nicely organized paragraphs. There is some good cohesion. You've got really the structure is easy to follow. It's quite well done. So there's some really good elements, and I even saw some nice vocabulary. However, I do want you to correct the errors that I mentioned and return them back with your next essays. So continue working hard. You're doing well. I'm certain that you're on your way. So great luck, and I will look forward to your next essays.